Okay. So.
Just a reminder, like, this is a conversation, so we're not, like, talking like we're explaining it to the audience.
Oh. Mm.
So what are we talking about?
So this morning we had sex. And I can't remember if you named it first or if I named it first, but I think you named. Well, okay. The sex, I felt very connected to you during the experience. And I felt very, like, open. And I felt very... It's hard for me to always find the words for this, but I felt like I could, like, drink in the sensation that was coming through, and I could, like, stay present and feel myself expanding as the sensation increased in places where sometimes, like, I think I can't or don't want to expand. Today I could, and today I was able to, like, access that place in myself where I could keep, like, feeling more and more, and, like, it feels very cathartic to me to have that experience in sex or in connection with another person, but, like, in this instance it was in sex.
What does cathartic mean?
Like, this is a great quiz. Like, something that moves deeply in you and has you feel like, I don't know if the actual definition of it is being connected to God, but for me, it's like a big, like, cry that, like, breaks through you is a catharsis, like something that has you feel like some great thing that needs to move can move. I don't know if that's the actual definition of it.
But that's what it means for you.
Yeah.
And I think I said that usually, or often in the past, not usually, but in the past, I would want to go there with you, and you would be like, oh, I'm full, I don't want to go further, I want to stop here. And that used to be more of a regular experience that we were having. And today it felt more like you were, like, letting me lead or go ahead in a certain place where otherwise you wouldn't. And I want to, like, also share, because I remember this from, like, other experiences that I had with other partners. Not recently, but, like, it brought up for me a memory of, like, you want to touch a woman, or, like, you're, like, in bed and you want to, like, do something, and the woman is, like, maybe, like, you're going down on her and she's, like, holds your head and pulls you back up, and it's like, no,
right, don't touch my body, or don't go there, or something.
Or, like, you're moving with your hand
down
and she's like, no, and there's something about, like,
stopping you,
and I think I want to be careful that this is not about like let the man violate you, or, like, let the man, like, do stuff you don't want to, and, like, you have to allow him to rape you, so to say. But I think there's more something about, and I think that's maybe what we're exploring, what that is, or what it feels like on my side is, like, it's actually the flow is moving there. It's actually, this is what wants to happen, but there is a fear that the person has that is not connected to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's what I want to share with you. That's actually, like, how I started earlier when I was talking about it.
Okay.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
And sort of interrupt you.
That's fine, go ahead.
So for me, sometimes what comes up there is, like, shame about what we're doing, and, like, I even heard in my head this morning, like, oh, like, this isn't like exciting for you, because you were, like, stroking me pretty quickly with your hand, just, like, like you were switching, you were doing some like clitoral stroking, and then you were like internally like stroking like up towards like what I would call like the G spot, but like towards the front of my the inside of my vagina, like behind my vulva. Yeah, like inside the introitus, but like forward, right? So stroking in these two very specific spots. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, he's not enjoying this. This is like, it's a lot of work for him. Like, these are the things I hear, right? And for me, those thoughts are actually like separate from...
Those are the thoughts that create the shame. That are part of the shame
construct.
Maybe,
but what I'm actually trying to say right now isn't that. Maybe they're part of the shame construct, but like those feel like two very separate things. Like those thoughts, like I don't feel shame about my body taking a long. I don't feel a lot of shame. Maybe I feel some. My body like taking a long time to like rise in sensation to go towards like what I would call a peak, right? Like some like the moment of high sensation, or like sometimes that's a climax, but sometimes it's not, and I'm like still like going upwards in sensation, like more sensation and more sensation. And like then separately, the feeling of shame that's like more like that has me usually say to you, and this is what I thought was valuable that I wanted to share with you, like I noticed myself get to that place where I would usually say like I'm feeling like I think for me what happens, and maybe you have something to add here or like something you notice, but I think for me what happens is like I'm so much in the shame that continuing in the experience of sex has me stay in the shame, and I'm like, I just want to get away from the shame. And so like I will be like, oh, okay, I'm full, like I can't take in anymore, and like ask to stop, because for a long time that was a powerful tool that I didn't know how to use. And so like it was like years of like learning that I could stop when I wanted to stop. And then like now what I feel like we're working on together, and like in my own sexuality I'm working on is like, and what I feel like I had access to today was like not needing to stop, like noticing that, but not having it be like that was the primary thing that was going on. It was like I was like, oh, okay, it's okay that like I can trust that you won't do something you don't want to do in terms of like the way that you're stroking and what feels good in your body as you're doing it, right? And I like right. That comes from a lot of communication between us. For me to like let go of that like fear that like it isn't fun for you, or like that's not the way that your body wants to move right now. Like there was a moment of like I could feel like you kind of like moved your cock away a little bit, and I could feel I could feel my body wanting to like literally like hungry for more, like wanting to like have more of like all of these different notes of touch that I was experiencing in like different places, and like I could keep receiving, like I could keep receiving in a way that like I don't always feel like I can. Like frequently what happens for me there is I'm like I can't actually receive. Like I want to, or like my body wishes to feel more, but like I can't do it. And today I felt so much more like I felt myself being more open, and I feel like in part that was connected to our conversation from last night. Mm-hmm. Did you have a sense of that earlier when I was talking about this?
Yeah, I think that is part of it, that like the energy that's been cultivated the day before is always very important to what the sex will feel like, whether we are connected, whether we have just worked through something. Often when you come home from like some kind of like exchange with other women and some community gathering, often you have more ability to open up.
Yeah.
the thought that it had like started coming up when you were talking was also that like the ability to say no gives you the chance to go further.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I think I needed a lot of time of saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And that like slowly over like many weeks, months, years, having a real practice with each other of me doing that.
Yeah.
Allows me to go further.
Another thing that comes up is like when you said like you noticed me pull away and you wanting it. I wonder if there's like, because part of today's sex was like, I don't want to climax for the next 30 days, so
right.
I stayed really like mindful of my own edge, and I always ask myself whether there's something for women where they want the man to climax, and it becomes every time when I'm like, I don't want to do that, I like notice there's this subtle disappointment.
Well, I think there's several different reasons for women having desire for the man to climax, and I think there's a lot, and I'm just going to mention this because it's not so much what I'm working with right now, but I think there's a lot around a lot of fixation of women on making sure their partner feels pleased, and like really being worried about like, oh my god, my body took 5 minutes to get to orgasm, and like I need to make sure he gets his too, and there's a lot of taking care of the other person. That's not so much my experience. I love the feeling in my own body, feeling you climax when you're inside of me. Like it feels good to me. It feels physically good. It feels emotionally connected to me. Feeling that experience with you, and like, yeah, it's like, it's one of my like, it's really exciting. It's really like physically arousing for me.
Right.
When you climax, and I know a lot of women share that. So
it is when you like have a female ejaculation.
That's exciting to you.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's some form of like achievement, accomplishment.
But I don't feel,
and then
like
also it's like hot.
The excitement for me is not like I've achieved something by taking you to climax.
But I wonder if there's like,
for me,
I wonder if there's a shadow side in this where like the man climaxing gives the woman some form of control, because like, you know that like if I climax, the game is over in a certain way. Like it gives you.
But that's not why it's arousing. That's not why it's like pleasurable.
That's not what I mean. I think those are two different things. I think there's like definitely like the arousing nature, or like the stimulative nature of like just the like, you know, like it's all wet and it's moist and it's slippery, and like it's just like we like being a puddle, you know.
I don't enjoy that when it's coming out of my body.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to be in the position of the one who is like letting it all go in a certain way, you know?
Inking like a squid.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it could be a form of pleasure for the other person, but it could also be a form of like, oops, I did this, like embarrassment.
Well, why is it, I think...
Oh. And that's what I mean, it's like, I think there's a form of like control in women feeling like, when the man has done it, like, it's done, I don't need to like open further, I don't need to actually let my body go into that state all the way, because he's somewhat doing it, you know, like he's providing for the lubrication in that way, he's making it all wet.
Right. I I do think I know women, and I have had the experience of like after the man climaxes and like
you're more free to climax yourself.
No, I'm like, oh, I want to keep going. I want to do it again. Like I want him to like keep stimulating me now, because like it's not always like, okay, game over, like bye, go to bed. Like I don't actually, that doesn't feel like the nature of it for me.
Well, maybe I'm not onto the right thing. I just definitely noticed that there often is a like, I don't want to climax today, and then there's like a disappointment, not just with you but like with anyone.
No, I definitely feel disappointed, but I don't think that's why. I don't think I'm like, oh, I really want the achievement of taking my husband over. I think a lot of women are very obsessed with the idea that like, I need to give my man pleasure because I need to be in service to his needs, because...
And you don't think this has anything to do with like, if he would not want to climax, that like that would mean that all the attention is on you in a certain way, and that's uncomfortable?
Well, that resonates more than what you were saying before. That is uncomfortable if all the attention is on me, definitely. Like for me personally, and having like years and years of like not really enjoying having my pussy sucked because I'm in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And like something that is like so pleasurable that so many women love, and like I actually do love when it's happening, but it's something that it's very uncomfortable to have all the attention on me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And like yeah, I'm like often in my head thinking about the other partner's experience.
Thinking about my experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's hard for me to like relax into just feeling it and like being with it and allowing it.
And today
allowing it in.
Today you felt like you could do that more.
Today I felt like there were like, I felt like 4 or 6 different points where I was like, oh, this is a place where I would normally like not be able to keep opening, and I felt myself like be able to not just remain as open as I was, but like open further, like open more, like allow myself to feel and be felt in connection to you. Mm-hmm. You know, like not so much like something I needed to do physically, but like allowing myself to just receive more deeply, to like let the pleasure I'm smiling because I'm like thinking of you being like, no, I'll have an addiction to pleasure. Let the pleasure in, like let the fulfillment and the like deep like not like animal like hunger be satiated. Like that feels like when I'm opening, that feels like what's available, you know, is like drinking water when you're thirsty in the desert, you know, like that's how it feels. After also like for me days of like wanting to be in a different place than I was emotionally, wanting to let go of something emotional that I couldn't let go of, wanting like judging my own personal experience, feeling very alone inside of where I was, not feeling like I could open even when I was like, I feel alone, I would like to open and like I can't. And then like now having this experience of like, not only can I open, but I can like keep doing it and it feels so good, and I'm like allowing it in, and I'm not getting stuck where I would normally be stuck on the shame or the making my body wrong for the experience in some way. Like asking for an adjustment when I wanted it, you know, like asking you to move your finger a different way, and like not like, oh, let me be in my head for like 10 minutes before I say like, could you stroke a little bit faster, or could I have a little more pressure, like, which I know how to do because I've been practicing that for a long time, right, because of our own practice and like what we do in our sex and the way that we communicate, and there's like so much permission for me to ask for what I want, and yet I still, after years of practice of that, still struggle like asking you, my partner that I trust, who I know loves me and like wants to know what I want and wants to be able to meet it, like still challenged by it. And then like today I like felt like significantly less challenged.
That's good.
Yeah. Do you want to talk more about the like 30 days of research that you want to do? Or do you want to stay with this spot from this morning?
I think there's just something for me where like I felt lately that like I wasn't having a real connection to my sexuality in the way that like I know is possible, like especially when I was like more experimenting with like my own feminine side and with like cross-dressing and it's not so much that I want to have I don't really have a desire for that right now, but I know there's like a more like embodied experience that I can have. And like through long time of like staying present with that like opening and closing, and then it stays closed for a while and then it opens again after months. I do think that it has to do with like when that opens for me, it's like very easy to be very indulgent on consuming sexually. And
what does that look like for you?
Like it looks like
consuming.
I think the consuming is like partially watching porn, which is something where I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll just, instead of like watching porn, I just, every time I'm horny, I'll tell you. But then it's also, I think, during sex, it's like...
It's not just tell me, it's ask for
sex.
Make-out.
Ask for make-out.
Yeah.
But then I think it's also like I think we've penetrated that a little bit more lately, and like I feel like I can ask you anytime. And then I came to a spot where I'm like, I don't want to ask you. Not because I don't feel like I can, but more because like there's certain things I want to do that I feel like that are not available with you. And certain things where I felt like the level of softness between us wasn't there, and therefore it wasn't opening a ground to really open myself to you. And I know that certain things you just don't want to do, or certain things you don't want to explore, and they also feel from my side more like there's like, how is this? There's this Rammstein lyrics where it says the elephant needs to fit through the needle ear, the eye of a needle. It's like, it feels like that sometimes with desire, you know. It's like like the pressure that I have inside cannot be received. And so then that pressure needs to somewhat like be offloaded, and that leads me into some form of like addictive repetitive routine, and that eventually drains the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it eventually is just like the embodied relationship with it is gone, and it's just it's just, and this is like over a period of time, you know, like it just moves and merges over a long time. I think it took me a long time to even see that, observe that. And I think that for me, it's like to not climax means like I'm continuing to build the arousal in my body, and that's something really difficult for me to do. And one of the conflicts there is often I can stay without masturbation, I can stay without pornography, but then every once in a while, like, you come and you're like, let's have sex now, and that's like, I don't know, like after 10 days, you know, and I've already like built a lot, and then it's very difficult to stay like, I'm not gonna come, you know. And so I want to like explore, I want to give it another try, let's say it like this.
Wait, can I ask a question about like, you're like, and then it's 10 days and then I've built a lot, and then like you come and ask for sex?
Yeah, and then I fall back into like,
and then because you climax in that sex, you fall back into
wanting to climax more.
Right, but your desire right now of having 30 days of no climax doesn't mean that you don't want to have sex for 30 days.
No.
You want to explore like your commitment to not climaxing, while including still like opening to be in like sexual like experiences, intercourse with each other.
Yes. But also yesterday, for example, I had a day where it was very hard, where like I was alone and I had a lot of freedom to do whatever I want, and I had a lot of very horny thoughts.
Right. It was a day when normally you would have like done more self-pleasure practice and like allowed yourself to go and like be
have
with that and like
want.
have it however you want, because you have the time and you have the space and you can and you like it, and
I love it.
And you have approval for it.
I do have approval for it.
Which is unusual.
And I've practiced letting myself have whatever I want in that space.
Yeah.
And but it's like, it's more like, okay, I've done this now. You know, I've done this for a long time, and it's like, I don't want to, if I continue my life like this, it's like, okay, is that all there is, you know? I want to like explore further. I want to see like what happens if I like stay abstinent for a long period of time, because abstinence ultimately is like what leads me to like a higher level of an erotic relationship with myself, because the mind starts to bring new eroticism to new places, you know, because it becomes more subtle as it's holding more energy.
Right. I find that to be like so true and so difficult for people who haven't like had this experience to understand. Like when I talk about this with other women, like they don't even like the subtle, right? Like what you just said about like exploring the subtle and like doing that individually or in partnership, like that concept is challenging for people who haven't really experienced and felt in their bodies what it feels like. I have a hard time describing it in words when I'm talking to other women about like self-pleasure or like asking for what they want in their partnership, and like the difference between asking in a certain way or like moving their partner's hand, and like all of that stuff, you know, is like there's a whole like feels like playground of learning about the subtle that a lot of people just don't have the ability to discuss. And
it's more of an embodied experience that is with you every day. It's not so much even about the intercourse itself or wanting to have the hand job feel a little better, but it's like, I think if we are somewhat erotically loaded, then anything, even just being outside in nature, can be like a very stimulating experience.
Totally.
So, and that's like something that like that's where that's what the pull and the draw for me is in that.
Yeah. That makes me think of this story that I heard one time from a woman. I heard the story like secondhand, but like from a woman who would like every time somebody was stroking her pussy, she would like touch her eyebrow, and then she got to this point where like she connected the feeling of like pleasure, and she could like just touch her own eyebrow, and she would like feel the like physical erotic nature of her own body with like something so subtle that like nobody around her even knew what was going on. Like she could feel it, she could access it, right? And like
it's very different though. That's very different though to what I'm describing, but yes, I see what you're saying. That's more like playing with the ability of your mind to be conditioned to something.
Sure.
And so like I'm trying to move out of the place of conditioning, because I'm conditioned massively in places where like every time I think of something, like I feel like I need to do something. Like a sexual thought leads me to the action of self-pleasuring myself without wanting to, which is an addiction based on conditioning.
Yeah.
And right now, coming out of that, it's like learning how to build more sexual tension or sexual potential in the own body, as in like energy. But then like I have to be like somewhat mindful, like how do I work with it? Because I mean, I think like that's like the thing that I'm like exploring right now. Is like this morning during sex there was like a moment where I was like stop, and because otherwise I would have gone over.
You didn't say it though.
No, but I made it feelable.
Yeah.
And you caught it.
Yeah.
And
you used your physical body to tell me that you wanted to stop moving.
Yes.
You wanted me to stop moving.
Yes.
Not just you wanted to, but you wanted both of us to like pause.
And there's a way in which like I can engage my brain into the sex. I can engage certain muscles in the sex, and all of those lead to increasing arousal inside myself. But if I run with that track, it's almost impossible to control whether I come or not. And then I get to that, and in the beginning that's often necessary for a man, because he needs to like make sure he has an erection or whatever, so he's like running in that track of like engaging the brain and the muscles to create the erection. But then you get to that point, you would usually go over, and there is a way in which when you pause there and you breathe and you let go, you have to let go of something in the brain, you have to let go of something in the body, and you have to somewhat become more passive in engaging your own body, and instead I started to become more active and actually just continuing to work your body. And then I get to fully relax, and then eventually like I get to come back and start using my cock or using my body, but less from a place of trying to create more energy inside my body, but more like I can just use it in a calm fashion of just exploring your body with my body, and it's more of a receptive place then. And
you have a long time practice of feeling my body and like other partners that you've had by like using your attention to feel what feels good in your body as you're touching. Like that's a whole subtlety.
Oh, and the thing is, there is a different...
You're not performing something on me. You know what I mean? You're like coming to feel and like notice and have attention. It's different than like, and now I'm just gonna like do you and be done. You know what I mean? Like it's in my opinion, it's not consumptive.
Right. No, it's more like a dance.
It's more like a dance.
It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
And the thing is also in this first track that I was describing, this like engaged, like you kind of like that is more like wanting, grabbing, pulling, because it's like has to fuel the erection, it has to fuel the come on all of this. But there is, when you come from that place, it's the same kind of like climax as you have access to when you masturbate or when you like, but in the other place, when it's like when you change the track to like more exploring, more seeing what is there, and your cock becomes less something, not having a goal, and your cock is less like driving, but it's more like it's a receptacle, it's an antenna, you know, it just feels what is in a certain way. There is a different kind of climax, which like I started to describe as like the involuntary climax for a man and for a woman. And that involuntary climax is really what I'm interested in building up towards, because that kind of climax really feeds into the spot where there is a like an emptiness that drives addiction. But if that void, so to say, like every addict can describe that kind of void, from that involuntary climax, it really starts to fill you up, because you have that experience of like, I think that climax is less a muscle created climax that is isolated in my body, but it is more a shared experience of energies coming to the peaks. And therefore the experience is then so profound between you and I, because we really actually just learning how to work with the energy that's been shared between the two of us, and we letting it, we collaboratively help it, cultivate it to a higher state, and then that higher state spills out and creates climax in your body and in my body. It creates orgasm in a peak state in both of our bodies, and then that's so profound, because it's a climax with all the stimulation that another climax has, but it's also fueled by this emotional connection between the two of us, which just touches something in us that's entirely different than just regular climactic sex.
Should we stop there?